No one goes over the wall, not without Mason Man telling you to. And it's been hundreds of years, hundreds, before anybody living in Perfectopolis has gone over the wall. Most people in Perfectopolis don't even mind. They've got a beautiful society with everybody has clean houses, amazing white picket fences, a town center where kids can play and grow up and purchase their own houses. But they're surrounded by a giant stone wall. The wall is as tall as a skyscraper and surrounds about 50 miles of town. There's a bunch of beautiful scenery, and supplies get brought in by Mason Man every single week. Mason Man, the town's superhero. Everybody loves Mason Man. Standing at 8 feet tall, everybody looks up to him. He's the mayor and the president and every other position that he possibly has. Instead of laws, Mason Man just tells the citizens what to do. And the only real rule is don't go over the wall. Ever since he was a child, Max stared at the wall. The blue sky was hidden by it. The sunrise and the sunset you could only see from reverberations in the sky overhead. "Why doesn't Mason Man let anyone over the sky, Daddy?" Max said when he was 4 years old. "Don't ask that," his father said. He looked at Max with a grave seriousness. He held him by the shoulders, hard. "It hurts," Max said. "Don't you ever ask that," his father said. And Max knew not to question it. As he grew into a young man, even though he never said anything, he had the feeling that some people knew. His teachers at school, people in the town, they all avoided him, just for a question he asked when he was a little kid. There was only one person he could talk to about it. Mason Man himself. See, there weren't that many people living in the town, and Mason Man was a really good guy. He could fly and helped out with the heavy lifting, and he got to know all the citizens, especially all the children. He was the principal of the school and made it a point to know every single child. And so Max would ask him many times about the wall, and Mason Man would always smile. Mason Man wore a gray costume made out of a similar material to the wall. "Max, what's over the wall doesn't matter," Mason Man said, smiling. "You got everything you need in this town. I've made it perfect for all of you. I'll tell you what's over it if you want to know, but to be honest, buddy, the world out there, it's not so great." "But why?" Max said, looking over the wall. "I know that there's a sunrise and a sunset. I know there are things out there that..." "Enough," Mason Man said, smiling. "You're a curious little guy. I think I'll have them set you up with physics at the university down the street. How does that sound?" Max grumbled. He was smart, he did well in his classes, but he wasn't like the other smart kids. All the smart kids were concerned with just impressing Mason Man with their good grades. Mason Man telling them about how they would be doctors and lawyers someday. But Max was different. He kept his thoughts to himself. His first memory of his father screaming at him told him that. But when Max was 14 years old, he decided that one day he would climb that wall. He would see what was on the other side of it. An old set of climbing ropes from the general store. Max touched the rope. He inspected it. They were perfect, tall enough that he could actually rig them and stick them into portions of the wall, potholes that he could pull himself up, one by one by one. The problem was the general store was heavily monitored by Mason Man's government, and the store owner had a massive signed portrait of Mason Man on the wall. He would have to steal it. But how? "Want to climb the old gulch?" the store owner said, smiling. He had a bum leg. He was disabled. But he still smiled. "Mason Man flew me up there once. 'Cause I can't go there." "Such a good guy, isn't he?" He raised an eyebrow, looking at Max, as if to say, "I know what you want to do with that rope. I know what's going to happen." The rope would have to be the last thing that Max got. Every day after school, he would go to the gulch and practice. He learned how to climb without ropes, how to use his hands into the smallest, minuscule handhold. After a while, he knew that ropes weren't even necessary. What he needed was a distraction. What he needed was time. It had been so long since Mason Man had been in a fight that people forgot that he was the only form of law enforcement, and Max knew if he started a riot, he could have just enough time to escape. He went to the town center, which was incredibly beautiful. He found a discrepancy, an error. They were recycling. It was all paper in a giant bin in the basement. They left it alone for days. If somebody had set it on fire, it would take a whole bucket brigade to put it out. Mason Man could do it in a few seconds, but if he was distracted, if there was something going on. Mason Man's nuclear power plant powered the whole city. It was incredibly well guarded. The facility was untouchable. But Max got in, saying that he was interested in becoming a nuclear engineer. He looked at the reactor, which was explained, and the engineers were friendly. Most people didn't take an interest in this important work. What would happen if the reactor became unstable? Max said, looking at the nuclear reactor. Well, we'd have to trust Mason Man for that, the engineer said. But don't worry. With us here, it keeps it mighty stable. What would Max have to do to climb that wall, he thought, as he sat in his parents' house and looked at the top of it. He had run scenarios in his mind. Poison the head nuclear engineer's tea? Hurt someone? I'm not going to hurt anyone, Max said. So he decided, right then and there, that climbing wasn't an option. The only option was to get skied. Getting skied was taboo in Mason Man's town. It was whispered, worse punishment than Mason Man executing you in the town square. Getting skied was a punishment reserved for people who had totally and completely violated Mason Man's rule, who had committed treason against him, and who wasn't even worthy of dying by his hand. Max had only seen 2 executions since he was a little kid, people who were caught for stealing. And even then, the stuff they stole was minor. They were old people, not necessarily rebellious, but trying to do something different, questioning. And Mason Man had executed them with tears in his eyes. It was a sad day every day that there was an execution. Mason Man would tell them, I kill you, but it doesn't mean that I don't love you. And the old people would weep and apologize, and he would kill them. But getting skied, Max knew. That was what he had to do. Who cares about Mason Man anyway? Max said loudly in the high school cafeteria. Immediately, everyone turned to look at him. I'm serious. Max stepped onto the cafeteria table, stepping in people's food. Why is he so great anyway? What's he hiding on the other end of that wall? Shut up, dude, a big guy at the table said. No, you shut up. We all act like a guy flying around and telling us what to do and killing people is unquestionable. But he's not so great. Yeah, he's got superpowers, he controls us, but he's not that strong. He still has to sleep. He still has to eat. He still has to... He heard Mason Man before he saw him. The way the ceiling cracked open and Mason Man smashed through it, floating above everyone else. It was uncanny, the way that he heard everything. He knew that Mason Man didn't have hearing powers, but the amount of loyalists to him in the town were intense. Max, Mason Man said, what are you doing? You heard what I said, didn't you? Did one of your spies not tell it to you? The kids murmured, nervous. Oh, you know, Nathan and Vicky, your spies who are students here. The students were uncomfortable, looking at their shoes. Everyone knew that Mason Man had spies everywhere, even fellow students. But nobody questioned his authority so openly like this. I'm tired. You know what? You aren't so great. You've given us this great society, but we have no freedom. No one here has seen a sunrise or a sunset. And you know what? You aren't so strong. There was a time before you existed, Mason Man. The bits and pieces about Mason Man were hard to find. He had to go into libraries, personal libraries of the rich people. Max had managed to sneak in when they were sleeping. There was no crime in the town, and most people kept their doors unlocked. He had read accounts of a superhero saying he would build a perfect society far away from everything. There was a big battle that he got defeated in before he said that. The name of the thing that defeated him was incredibly hard to find. He'd have to sift through many different libraries, but finally he found the creature that beat Mason Man. It was a creature called the Minotaur. Do you guys know how he made this place? Max said. He lost. Somebody defeated Mason Man. He lost to a battle to the Minotaur. Max choked. Mason Man was choking him in front of the entire school. This act of violence was different from an execution. He wasn't smiling or crying. His eyes were pure rage. I had a lot of hope for you, Max, Mason Man said. But mentioning the Minotaur is a skyable offense. All the students looked at him in awe. No one had gotten skied in their entire lifetime. The last one was barely a memory. But Max, in questioning the rule of Mason Man, in invoking the blasphemous name of the Minotaur, had earned that punishment. You want to see what's happening on the other end of the town? Mason Man said. Fine. He didn't even let Max say goodbye to his family. He simply flew him, holding him by the neck above the town. Max's face was purple now. He could do nothing to Mason Man's choking and his strength as he flew him higher and higher. The wall was even higher than anyone could even imagine. Max knew that it was the biggest thing he could ever see, but they flew up for minutes before they could summon it. And just as they were about to see what happened on the other side, Mason Man spoke. "I was losing my grip. Thank you, Max." Max looked at him. Even though he was terrified, his eyes were full of defiance. "I'm going to kill your entire family and your siblings. You know that, right?" Max gasped. Mason Man held him by the shirt, letting him breathe for a second. "Please," Max said. "They don't know anything. They don't." "You don't understand how hard it is to run this place," Mason Man said. "I don't care that they don't know anything. You're getting skied. Everybody who you've ever talked to is a suspect. Your family? They're already dead. Your friends? Suspect. Potentially to be killed. But you wanted to see what was on the other side of this wall so bad, didn't you?" Max tried to think of something to say, but he was filled with anger. "They didn't even do anything," he said. "It was just me. I'm the one that found it." "It doesn't matter," Mason Man said. "But you wanted to see what was on the other end of the wall so bad. Why don't you take a look?" He flew Max up over the wall, and Max's eyes widened. The world was a flat, destroyed mess. Burned remains from years ago. Ash of corpses. As far as the eye could see, it wasn't a beautiful forest like Max had imagined. It was death and destruction and terror. "This is my favorite part," Mason Man said, holding Max, showing him the death and the destruction. "Everybody like you thinks that the world on the other side is going to be something beautiful. But when they die, they know that they were wrong," Mason Man said. Mason Man let Max go on the other end of the wall. He had no way of saving himself. He fell and fell and fell. And as he fell towards the gray, destroyed mass of what used to be the world, of what Mason Man destroyed to create his perfect little utopia, Max saw the sunset for the first time.